Pedro Albizu Campos is one of the most prominent figures in Puerto Rico's historic fight for independence. Known affectionately as El Maestro, or the teacher, he was a Harvard-educated attorney and political leader who spoke 6 languages. Albizu Campos is to this day a controversial figure due to his willingness to use violence in the fight against American oppression of his beloved Puerto Rico. Let's learn a little more of his story. Albizu Campos was born into poverty in the town of Ponce, Puerto Rico on June 29, 1893. In 1912, Albizu Campos graduated from Ponce High School and received a scholarship for chemical engineering at the University of Vermont. He later transferred to Harvard University and became only the second Puerto Rican ever to graduate from the school. When World War I broke out, he volunteered for military service and was assigned to the U.S. Army's 375th Infantry Regiment. The unit was segregated and made up of only dark-skinned Puerto Ricans. In 1919, Albizu Campos was honorably discharged from the Army, and he returned to his education. He attended Harvard Law School, where he met foreign students who were involved in political movements such as the fight for Irish and Indian independence. He graduated from Harvard Law School in 1921 and was promptly offered prominent posts within the U.S. government, including at the U.S. Supreme Court and the U.S. State Department. Albizu Campos turned down these posts in order to return home to Puerto Rico and focus on the cause of Puerto Rican independence. Albizu Campos was a powerful public speaker, and this helped him become vice president of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party in 1924. In 1927, he visited the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Venezuela, Cuba, Panama, Peru, and Mexico in order to build support for a unified anti-colonial struggle. Albizu Campos was elected president of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party in 1930. He started a campaign for Puerto Rican self-determination, including education and political organizing. In 1933, Albizu Campos led a strike against the Puerto Rico Railway and Light and Power Company. In 1934, he represented sugarcane workers in a lawsuit against the United States sugar industry. This advocacy led to a doubling of the wages for sugarcane workers. In 1935, 4 members of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party were killed by police during unrest at the University of Puerto Rico. The police were under the command of Colonel E. Francis Riggs, a former U.S. Army officer. This event became known as the Rio Piedras Massacre. On February 23, 1936, 2 members of the Cadets of the Republic, the paramilitary wing of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party, assassinated Colonel Riggs. The 2 assassins were killed by police following their arrest. Pedro Albizu Campos and 8 other members of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party were arrested and charged with sedition and other violations following the killing of Colonel Riggs. Albizu Campos was eventually convicted by a jury consisting of 10 Americans and only 2 Puerto Ricans after an initial hung jury. On March 21, 1937, the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party staged a peaceful protest in Ponce, Puerto Rico, to commemorate the abolition of slavery on the island, and to protest the imprisonment of Pedro Albizu Campos. Insular police opened fire on the unarmed protesters, shooting many in their backs. 17 civilians were killed, along with 1 policeman and 1 National Guardsman. The event later became known as the Ponce Massacre. No U.S. government officials or police were ever held accountable for the killings. Pedro Albizu Campos remained in prison for 11 years and was finally released in 1947. He returned to Puerto Rico and began organizing armed resistance to the United States plan to make Puerto Rico a Commonwealth of the U.S. On October 30, 1950, Puerto Rican nationalists staged island-wide attacks, including an attack on La Fortaleza, the Puerto Rico governor's mansion, and an attack at Blair House in Washington, D.C., where President Harry S. Truman was temporarily residing. These attacks were not meant to overthrow the United States, but rather to alert the world to the horrible conditions that Puerto Ricans faced. In response, the U.S. sent 5,000 National Guard troops to the island to stop the uprising. The U.S. dispatched P-47 Thunderbolt aircraft to bomb and strafe the cities of Jayuya and Utuado. News of this military action was suppressed from reaching the U.S., and President Truman simply said that it was an incident between Puerto Ricans. Albizu Campos was quickly arrested along with 3,000 Puerto Rican nationalists. He was sentenced 1 year later to an 80-year prison term. In 1953, Albizu Campos was pardoned by Puerto Rico Governor Luis Muñoz Marin. The pardon was, however, revoked a year later, after an attack by Puerto Rican nationalists on the U.S. House of Representatives. The attackers fired 30 rounds from the balcony onto the legislative floor and unfurled a Puerto Rican flag. 5 U.S. representatives were injured, but all recovered. Albizu Campos praised the attack, and he was suspected of planning it. Following the attack, Albizu Campos spent 11 more years in prison. His health declined during this time. Albizu Campos alleged that he was the victim of radiation poisoning by the United States. His symptoms, including sores on his legs, were consistent with radiation exposure. In 1994, the U.S. Department of Energy confirmed that human radiation experimentation had been conducted on prisoners without consent during the time that Albizu Campos was incarcerated. Albizu Campos was pardoned again by Governor Luis Muñoz Marin in 1964, and he died in April of that same year. Pedro Albizu Campos' legacy is one of fierce independence and love of his native Puerto Rico. His name now adorns parks, schools, and roads in Puerto Rico, as well as Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and several U.S. states. Statues and plaques honoring Pedro Albizu Campos can be found throughout Puerto Rico, including in Ponce and Mayagüez. You can see his image on canvases, wall murals, posters, and t-shirts. His words live on through his speeches and writings, and he continues to inspire millions of people around the world.
Amados hermanos, a cada generación toca recoger las cenizas de sus mayores. Aquellos que no veneran las cenizas de sus mayores son los verdaderos muertos, los que se extinguen en el cosmos porque son indignos de la personalidad humana.